What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Bullets, Barbells, and Barbecue. I'm your host, Brett. I got Chris, the artist formerly known as Heavy C. Matt is out today, so Tanner is in his spot with the head. We have a guest with us. We'll get to her in just a second. We have our show sponsors, show partners, Elite Nutrition Omaha. Check them out at elitenutritionomaha.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off. Go to the store, yell B3.
Get a free shaker.
We have Rosewood Block to make the best cutting boards in barbecue, fully customizable. Check them out at rosewoodblock.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off there. So we have our guest today. We have Michaela from D&D Beef. They're a local ranch. Well, local to Omaha. How far, I guess, from Omaha?
About an hour north, like straight north, yeah.
So, and this is a family ranch?
Yep.
How many generation?
Technically, I'd say I'm probably the third. Yeah, third.
So is it your family or husband's family?
My family.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so you let your husband in on it.
I let him in on it.
That's kind of like how your wife lets you drive the pickup sometimes.
Yep.
He's just like that.
That's exactly how it is.
So how'd you guys what's kind of the history of your ranch? Like, how'd you guys get started, kind of?
So D&D actually stands for Dan and Dwayne, which is my dad and my grandpa. So growing up, my dad was around agriculture and such. And then when my dad was probably around my age, him and my grandpa decided to start getting into the seed stock business. So what that means is selling like breeding quality animals, so registered animals. So just, think of it in regards to like dogs, like a lab or something. So you're paying attention to bloodlines and such. So my dad and my grandpa were wanting to get more purebred cattle. So they started D&D Cattle Company. And then my grandpa started selling quarter halves and wholes almost 60 years ago. So kind of common. I mean, we're in Nebraska. We're all kind of familiar with it. But if you look at like agriculture in general, it still wasn't that common. That was all kind of not as common, or it has decreased, is what I'm saying, selling quarter halves and wholes to friends and family. Anyway, so growing up, that was also really common. And then my grandpa and my dad were building our herd as well while I was growing up. So in size. Yeah.
Now, when you say your herd, like how big? I've always wondered how big you have to be to sustain constant turnover.
Well, and that's the thing is it depends because everyone's different. So for us personally, we have a couple hundred head of cows is what I'm referring to. But everyone's different in what they consider a herd. Some people say I have cows and it might be, they may only have 5. Other people might have 1,000. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing and stuff. So, yeah.
Try and kind of find that sweet spot for whatever you're trying to do.
What you're doing, is it your primary source of income? How are you marketing your calves? And are you kind of hobby farming it, or is it like a source of income? Is what I'm trying to say. So there's a lot of variabilities in it.
Now, what's your kind of turnover? Because I know you guys obviously sell. So what's your kind of turnover and what can you produce?
So when someone's talking about their herd size, what they're doing is they're referring to usually their cows. So if you ask how many head of cattle people have, that's just the cows. That's not including the calves or the bulls and everything you have at your place. So a cow has a calf every year. Okay. So right now at our ranch, we're calving. We're actually on the downhill side of calving. So that means our cows are giving birth. So we have X number of calves on the ground. We also have, our annual bull sale in a couple of weeks. We're selling 50 bulls. Plus we have replacement heifers. So those are heifers that we will sell for breeding purposes or keep in our herd. Plus we have calves that we're selling for beef. So we don't just have 200, a couple hundred cows and a couple hundred calves. You're also including the calf crop from the year before, plus how many bulls you have. Like, it's not, every ranch is different with how many head of cattle they're keeping at their place, but you see how that's really complicated? Like,
sure. Because like with you guys, what's your guys' main thing? Is it the selling the beef or is it selling the bulls and the
beef? So when my grandpa started selling the quarter halves and wholes, that was like old school. So my grandma Helen used to have a piece of paper by her phone, and people would call and say, I want beef, and she'd write them down. And then when dad or grandpa would be like, Helen, we got beef going to the butcher, she would pick up her list and just start calling people. So that had always been there, but it wasn't a primary source of income. It was just something they did on the side. So it was about 5 years ago, my dad called me and said, hey, we got a couple extra steers that were ready for butcher. Helen was still around at this time, but they'd kind of gone through the list. He goes, throw something up on social media. And this was before everything was I want to say not filtered. Everything was restricted online. So what I'm saying, I could post it and not be banned and all that fun stuff. So what I'm saying. Anyways, so I accidentally started D&D beef. I did not mean to. At the time, I had a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. Like, I wasn't trying to start a business. I posted it online and I was like bombarded with everybody wanting beef. So I started that business on accident. Even though we were still doing it, but it wasn't a primary source of income. The main part of our family ranch is like our annual bull sale every year. My dad and my grandpa would sell calves locally, like at the sale barn, or for meat is what I'm saying. And I kind of started the business for myself and my family, but now my dad doesn't really sell calves anymore because I'm just keeping them for our branded beef business. So I've in turn made another source of income, of course, but he was still doing it, but we're actually kind of making more money now because I'm selling them myself instead of the sale barn and the packer getting all the profit now. So kind of cut out the middleman's what I'm saying inadvertently. So,
well, and it kind of seems like that's where people are going back to.
Yeah.
You know, because it was a while there that you didn't buy as many quarter halves holes. And now it feels like people are like, I don't know, especially a certain type of person.
Yeah.
Maybe a prepper person. Kind of leaning towards that.
COVID kind of lit the fire under a lot of people, especially where we live. It's very common. I mean, right before COVID, I was starting to sell my beef. So, I mean, the demand in Nebraska is there, the quarter halves and wholes. I mean, I sell and ship nationwide too, but if you say to somebody, you throw a rock and hit somebody in Omaha, a lot of people still know what that means. Now, I have friends that live in Washington and Wyoming and California and stuff. When you get out that way, not the rural people, I'm talking the people in the cities, for example, I feel like they have a harder time selling quarter halves and wholes, just because not as many people are familiar, like in our area. I think it's just generation, we're not as removed is what I'm saying.
Yep.
So, yeah.
What cattle do you guys raise? Like, what's your primary?
Registered Red Angus and Black Angus. So I always think of like labs, Black Lab, White Lab, Chocolate Lab. They're all labs. They're all related. They're basically the same thing, but it's Black Angus and Red Angus. Difference is basically hair color. They're still the same.
Same. It doesn't change like your.
Nope. It's all the same.
You guys focus on bloodline a lot.
Yeah, so everything's registered. So all of our cattle are like registered with the breed association. So I tell people, for example, like I can tell you your steak's great-great-grandpa's birth weight, and I'm not being dramatic. Like that's how much data is taken because cattlemen want to know. So say somebody's buying a bull from us and they want to know what the carcass quality is going to be. They also want to know the birth weight because birth weight, obviously calving ease. Like if, you got to match it up. You don't want to, a huge bull on a small cow, try to get that calf out. Like it's going to cause problems. So that's why data and stuff's so important. So that's why everything's registered and we keep like meticulous data through the association for the cattleman who's buying those calves. So
it is crazy. My buddy works in animal genetics and he kind of jokes that he's a cow pimp.
But yeah.
Yeah. But it's crazy on how much data there is and how much of a science it is.
It's huge. I mean, I went to South Dakota State University and I got a degree in animal science, which is basically a vet degree, but not as much science because it's like not the it's not the chemistry and stuff, but it's very detailed. I mean, we took genetics and it's very detailed. Everything we're doing is. I mean, everything that you apply to humans is applied to animals, basically, like DNA testing. I mean, we are utilizing the same things. And when I'm saying things, I'm just talking the science of it. So, I mean, think of how much we've learned about humans and such. We do that with cattle, too. So.
South Dakota State jackrabbits?
Jackrabbit.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
When you're for anybody out there who might not, so when you're doing quarters, halves, and wholes, what's kind of the average weight of those? So if someone is listening to the show and they want to get with like, hey, I have like a freezer above my fridge.
Yep. Yeah, that would not fit. Okay, so so every animal's different, just like people, right? Every animal's different. So I always give averages. So like an average carcass weight. So I talk in carcass weight because live weight is just beside the point. I do carcass weight so we can break it down, is what I'm saying. So average carcass weight, 800 to 900 pounds. So that's after the animal's harvested and cleaned, basically. And hung up to dry age for 21 days. That's the carcass weight, bones and everything. So 800 to 900 pound carcass weight. If you were going to get a quarter, for example, that'd be 250 pounds carcass weight. And then we do the old school way, like the way that my grandpa did it, where if somebody buys a quarter, half, or whole from me, they talk to the butcher. I'm out. If you want that entire quarter ground up, please don't do that, but you can, and that's what you will get. Like, so you have full control. So that affects how much beef you'll yield. I have one guy that just gets steak and ground beef, and that's it. So he yields less because he's grinding up roast, brisket, skirt steak, flank steak, tri-tip, short ribs. He's not getting any of that. So every cut you would say no to, the butchers physically, they're, hand cutting that. So you're losing meat is what I'm saying. But on average, if you would get a quarter, 200, 250 pound carcass weight, you would yield 50 to 55% of that in beef, closer to 55, 56 if you get all the cuts. So that's where that variability is. So that's 125 pounds of beef you'd yield.
What are some of the cuts that people don't get?
A lot of people, I always tell them to get everything because I said if it's the first time and if you like meat, just get it all. Like unless you are for some reason you're like, I despise, I don't know, arm roast. I'm like, unless for some reason you have like a pure hatred towards a cut, just get it all. Some people won't get though, culotte, tri-tip, hanging tender, skirt steak, flank steak. It's kind of those, I call them specialty cuts, but they're really not. I think it's the cuts people are scared to cook at home.
Those are the best
And
ones.
I think that's why they've gotten more specialties because you don't see them very often. So you go somewhere and they're having a flank steak at a restaurant, you know what I mean, where you don't normally get it, I feel like.
And it's so good. And I try to tell people like, those are the best cuts. They cook the fastest. It's like the perfect like Tuesday night. It takes, you're grilling them like a steak. It really doesn't take that long. And they're so good they're so good for you and they're such a great cut. Like I really try to talk people into getting all of them and just, Google a recipe quick because you're wasting it if you're not eating it.
So how do they determine, I know they look at, is it based off the ribeye when they determine the prime or choice? Yep. So are yours, because of all the genetics, are yours all, like, can you basically be like, these are all prime? Or does it all come down to once they get butchered, they determine it then?
They would determine it then. I don't pay the butcher to grade our beef because I don't try not to sound like an arrogant ass, but I don't need
You can,
to.
It's totally fine.
Because
You'll fit right in.
And you joined. No, so we used to, before I started doing more of this, so we would retain ownership in our calves that we deemed not good enough quality for breeding purposes. And when I say good enough quality, there's nothing wrong with them, but I'm talking like structural soundness is what I'm saying. So
she's a sturdy girl.
Kinda. She have childbearing hips, yes or no? Like seriously though, that's what the conversations are. So if they didn't, that's really what it is. So if we thought they weren't good enough for breeding, we would retain ownership and take them to a feedlot in Iowa, small family-owned feedlot, and we would retain ownership all the way through harvest, and we would get all the carcass data back. So for years, we know how our cattle have graded with the genetics, with everything being registered and what we're doing. Plus, we used to collect carcass data all the time. Our cattle would always grade upper 2/3 choice and prime. So that's why if someone buys beef from me, there's not going to be a prime or upper 2/3 choice sticker on there. But I don't worry about it because I don't need to worry about it. And that does kind of sound arrogant, but I know
you have a good product.
Yeah, like why would I pay somebody else to tell me? That's why when people are like, are you organic or natural or humane? I said, no, I don't need to pay some pencil pusher to tell me I'm doing a good job. I don't need to pay some guy to come and follow my dad and I around and being like, oh, you're not doing a good job. Like, I know we are. That's why our beef tastes good. Plus, so that goes with the labeling too. Nothing against the guy at the facility that's there inspecting. I just don't need him to put a prime sticker.
You just don't need
it.
that pencil pusher.
No, I don't need him. So anyways, but that is, they cut at the 13th rib. They look at the ribeye. They have their little chart, and then they would grade the ribeye for the marbling. Yes, at the locker. So.
And you guys do only dry aged?
Yeah, so they dry age 14 to 21 days, closer to 21. Most small butchers, which once again, I'm glad where we live in Nebraska, there's so many awesome like small butchers in the area. All those butchers will dry age. What aged is the beef you get in the grocery store? I personally do not know nor have never heard of a small butcher. When I'm saying small, I'm talking like your family-owned small business. I haven't heard of anybody doing wet aging. Usually they do dry aging. I think it's just logistics of
And it's a little different taste, right? The dry
Yes.
age versus
the wet age. So wet age is the beef you get in the grocery store once the animal's harvested at like a larger slaughter facility. They do let it hang. They've kind of changed some of that over the past couple of years. They have, I think they're like blast chillers now just to cool the carcass faster. It used to be, I think, a day or two. I don't know what they're doing now. More air movement to get the carcasses cooler. Anyways, and then they would fab them at the slaughter facility, vacuum seal them, and then they are aging during transport. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not bagging on it. I'm just saying that's how they age that beef, the beef you get at the grocery stores. Wet aged, they just are doing it during transportation and packaging and processing and stuff.
So in that whole, like, what is, and some of the, and I'll give Matt credit. Some of these are Matt's questions because he's not here. But,
Matt did have some pretty good questions.
Yeah.
I read them and I was like, that's not bad.
so along that, like, one of his was also like, how long from like born to table?
So that's a really good question because I think a lot of people.
Good job, Matt.
Yeah, he did. Good job. You got A+, sir. I think that's actually something that I wish general consumers would understand. Like beef, yes, it's expensive, but one of the reasons it's expensive is cows' gestations, just like a human's. So you have that pregnancy, right? Then that calf has to be born at a ranch like ours. Ranches across the country, that's everybody's calving right now, or they calve in the fall, depending on where they live. The cow has a calf. That calf and cow, I'm going to use our ranch as an example. So we calve in the spring, calf's born, okay? We turn them out May when the grass is ready for turnout. So then they're turned out on summer pasture all summer long. Then we wean in the fall. So calf on average, industry average, I think is 6 to 8 months of age. That calf is weaned, which means it's separated from the cow. At this time, those calves are nursing morning and night. They weigh on average 550 to 6 1/4. That's our ranch average weaning weight's what I'm telling you. Not really getting much from the cow anymore. It's time. Just go ahead and wean them because they're basically self-weaning anyway. Then once they're weaned, this is where everybody does it differently. They can stay on the ranch or get sold, go to a stocker operation, which is another rancher, usually in the South, Kansas, Oklahoma area. They have like wheat pastures, forage, growing seasons longer. They buy calves that are weaned, turn them out. They just keep grazing, or they get sold and go to some feedlots. Feedlots, just putting them in a pen and feeding them basically a forage-based diet. Nothing wrong with that. Primarily grass and hay and stuff because just getting those calves to grow. And then on average, depending on how those calves are finished, 18 months of age, that calf's harvested. So it's 18 months from birth to harvest, but then you've also got almost a year into them in utero, basically. So when people look at like cost of beef and stuff, look how long.
It's like a 30-month turnaround, basically, of you feeding them.
It's a long time. So hogs, for example, their gestation's 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. So, you know, like the feral hog population, they're like rabbits and cats. Like they just keep populating. Like they won't stop. That's how, when you look at poultry in hogs, the cost is cheaper. Look how fast their turnaround time, and they grow pretty fast. And I mean, it's just faster. They convert, they just are machines. They grow faster. And when you look at what you're putting into them, it's a little less than cattle. I mean, that's a lot.
Now, are you guys farming your own, like as far as corn and feed, like whatever you're feeding?
We do. We rent some ground, and we buy from neighbors. We do a lot of like hay and forage and stuff because obviously that's the main thing. There's a lot of corn around here, so we'll buy from neighbors if we need it for finishing. But my dad and I will harvest most of our hay. We have to buy a little bit, but otherwise we try to do it all ourselves and then buy from a neighbor.
So you're not really farmers along with it. You're just ranching the cattle.
You just grow what you need to feed.
Kind of. I mean, we would like more ground. We recently lost some, but it's expensive.
Like lost some? Like you just can't find it?
Yeah.
There it is.
Where'd it go? No.
I swear it was here.
It was you. Where did it go?
The river moved. We lost land.
I'm originally from old school Bennington. Like my family came here in like 1900 something. We were here. And then my grandparents passed and divvied up some land between my dad's siblings. So we lost some land down here by Bennington. We moved up to the Herman area about 20 years ago because our summer pasture was up there. So we moved up there so we could have all the cattle in a spot. So the ground down by Bennington, we don't farm anymore. So that's what I said when we
Is
left.
it like a little family fallout there, was it?
No, not too bad. It was just like
too bad.
division.
I hate that fucking guy, but whatever. It's fine. It's fine.
Well, that Bennington area is being sold for a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. But so anyway, so we were old school Bennington and then moved up north. So yeah.
So how do you guys decide which calves you're going to keep for breeding and which ones you're going to send off to either
be
sell or to
harvested?
Yeah.
Seriously, it is like looking at their body and
data?
build.
So you're like, oh, bull B would be really good with calf Z, and then we'll make some good meat with that. But these other calves came from this bull and this other cow, so we're not gonna.
You said it was his hips, right?
But okay, so kind of. So there's two things. So you call it your phenotype and your genotype. So physically, how the animal looks, and then the pedigree behind it. Now, obviously, if they're walking like bow-legged, you're not going to keep them even if they have the world's best numbers. Like, and when I'm saying numbers, so if you would like look at an animal, for example, and you're looking at their EPDs, which is called their expected progeny differences, and this is what all breed associations have. Like, I mean, every Angus, Red Angus, Charolais, Herefords, everybody is utilizing these same numbers. So what you do is you look at them structurally first, and then we look at their pedigree. So if a calf is walking, doesn't have the best feet or legs or hips or muscle mass, if it's a bull, if they don't look good, it doesn't matter how good those numbers are. So if they look decent and their numbers are good, then they get a stay. If they don't, then they go into our branded beef program. They'll still make a great steer. They'll still taste great. They'll still make a great heifer and still taste great. It's not the quality of the meat. It's their potential as when they get older is what I'm saying.
Like reproduction. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then so like right now, next Tuesday, like our large animal vet's coming out to do breeding soundness exams on the bulls. So we will evaluate their semen and then we'll take scrotal measurements because that's correlated with fertility as how,
Make sure they got a nice beanbag.
Yeah, it is. and so that's what we're looking at. But all that stuff adds up. So if it's still the best looking bull and he doesn't pass his breeding soundness exam, he will not be sold. I don't care if he looks.
So what do you do with them then if you don't sell them?
Most of the time, if somebody doesn't pass the breeding soundness exam right now, it's going to be because of age, because we are so critical of them. Like the conversations I have with my father would make so many people blush because I'd be like, that bull's nuts are too small, Dad. Like we already kind of did those conversations. So if they'll pass, basically, is what I'm saying. We've kind of weeded out everything. We'll retest them in a couple months because usually it's going to be a sperm issue because they're not sexually, they might be like right at the line where they should be passing from a sexual maturity standpoint.
How old is old?
For what?
A bull.
For the bull.
To be able to breed, or you mean just in life?
Just in life, like you said, once they get older, that's when they're not producing as much. So
like we are selling our bulls right now are about 1.5 years old that people are buying to use on their cows. I think the oldest bull we've ever had might have been 6 years old. The only reason why we get rid of them though is because they are going to start getting too many daughters in the herd.
Then it's inbreeding at that point.
Yeah. So, and plus they're getting a little older. So like some people would sell them and give them to another rancher. Like, hey, we've got this old bull, but we try to utilize them as much as possible. And then they go to town and then McDonald's.
Yeah.
So that's so whatever.
You ever
What
sell
happens
the
when
rodeos?
Huh?
You ever sell them to rodeos?
No, that has to be breeding
different
stock.
Oh, okay.
That's a whole different rodeo.
No.
So yeah, that's
I
I guess
always wanted
when they
to ride
get
a bull.
when they get old,
luck.
like so. But bull meat.
Godspeed.
Yeah, I just want. I think I'm too old to do it now, but like I really wanted to.
You probably want to wear some kind of neck harness with that head flying around like that.
Probably.
Wait it down.
Like with an old bull, yeah. So because
Excuse me.
obviously you don't usually eat bull meat.
I mean, we all have. You've eaten it at a.
Yeah. So, but it's
Like
not
you
like
said, McDonald's.
Well, that's what I said. So that's
Yeah.
where they go. They just go. You'll.
I always say like that's kind of like a joke. We're always like we're taking.
I mean, I like McDonald's. It's
There's
fine.
nothing wrong with McDonald's if it's hot. Who cares? So like if an older animal, so like right now I have our oldest cow is 14, 15 years old at our house.
No, she's just a family cow.
She's still producing. It's one of them's
Oh.
like my last show heifer that I ever showed. So like the joke
Little
is,
4-H'er.
I was like, she's not going to town, and they're like, what are you gonna do with her? I'm like, lawn ornament. Like I don't know. She'll go to town.
That's what I was gonna say. Do you have something that you get like? I mean, some people don't get it, but you have to remember
that's a
these
nice
are
way to say it too. Go to town.
Yeah.
She's going
down.
Yeah.
but
She has a visit.
and I think some people they get like all like weird about it. Not like even like I'm not saying like PETA people, but people who get weird about it, like they're raised for that reason.
Oh,
but
it sucks though.
But as a rancher, you still have an attachment to some of these.
Oh God, I have cried. Like I mean, I've seen my dad. Like, okay, so 2 things. Omaha, there's a cow kill plant down in Omaha, and I'm drawing a blank on what it's called. So if we have a cow that's old and she's okay, but like maybe her hips are starting to hurt her or something, right? Like as any old aged animal person, whatever, like what usually goes out, hips, your back starts bothering you and stuff. We will take her straight to the packing plant so we don't have to run them through a sale barn. Because, okay, so I'm telling you, my dad's calling somebody to make sure we can get this older cow in so she doesn't have to be taken to a sale barn, run through a sale barn, loaded on a semi-trailer, then taken to the cow kill plant to be processed. We're trying to do the nicest thing possible. She still has a purpose. Why would we put her down and waste what's there? I mean, that's kind of silly too, right? Like, I mean, anyway. So then we'll try to take them straight to the cow kill plant. That's like the most humane besides us just putting her down at our place. Now she can still walk. She's fine. She's not in any pain. We're getting rid of them right before you're like, oh, she's not keeping as much body weight on. This winter, she didn't keep as much body weight on. She's not keeping up with the herd as much, like literally keeping up with the herd. The herd's here grazing.
And they're not speed demons.
Exactly. So we get rid of them before it becomes a problem is what I'm saying. So we try to do the nicest thing possible and take them straight to the cow kill plant. Because my dad nobody wants to take a cow who's been in your ranch for 12 years to the sale barn and be like, I mean, it sucks.
Good luck out there.
Yep. See you later. Like, I mean, it is what it is. But those really old gals, like we're trying to do the nicest thing. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people don't understand, to your point of what you were talking about, some of them, it really does suck. Like nobody's excited to do it. They've been with you for 12 years.
That's a pet. I mean, that's a dog.
Yeah. I mean, some of them aren't pets, but yeah, you're like your old trusty gal.
You see them out there all the time. They're always hanging out.
06, 03, 8, 11, 11, 14, 13, 11.
I'm assuming we're talking ear tags on them.
Those are all ear tags that are going this year. So I just rambled them off. And the first number of their tag is the year they were born. 06 and 03 were 2010. So they're 14 this year. So, I mean, we know them. We know them. They've had cows. Like I showed their great grandmas. Like it's a weird thing. Like they're part of it, but it's part of life too. Like that's what they were here for. So.
I mean, those are the decisions that have to be made.
Yeah.
But they're still emotional. Yeah.
And you don't want to watch any animal suffer. It's no different than when you put your dog down. Like, you know what I mean? You don't want to watch your dog suffer.
And I think too, a lot of people, I mean, and we've tried, like so my dad was an Omaha fireman for 25 years. I've seen him give CPR on a calf before. Like, I think sometimes that's the other thing, just like what we were talking about. It sucks, but they were put here for a reason. But I've also seen my dad do CPR on a calf. We brought a calf in the house to try to save it before. Like 3 weeks ago, I spent a whole day with a calf. I was with it from like 8 in the morning. I took it to the vet. It got a bunch of IVs. It got scours. It died at 6 o'clock that night. So I spent my whole day trying to save this thing and it still died. I knew there was a pretty good chance it would, but that's just the kind of stuff I don't think, we aren't heartless because we're doing it. We still try to do the best things is what my rant was.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
You know, it's a lot.
Speaking of maintaining the cows, now I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube before and watched hoof videos.
I love those. Aren't they fantastic?
Do you guys have a hoof guy?
No. Was
that like a farrier? Is it like with horses you have a farrier?
It's different. Farriers
It's
are
different,
different than
but
like a cow
correct.
hoof guy. That
Yeah.
comes
So those
by
hoof
and
guys, as you caught, those are mostly for dairy
milking,
breeds.
yeah, milking cows. Yeah,
Because they're on cement and there's nothing, I mean, they're not doing anything wrong. They're on cement, then they're on sand beds, and then a lot of those guys have like small pasture paddocks out behind. But the problem, my understanding, is they don't get the wear off like our cattle do, being turned out on summer pasture and having to move. And then they have more chance to just grab foreign objects because they're around machinery more when they're cleaning, stuff gets tracked
when
in
they're
and out.
getting their milk harvested.
Yeah.
Yeah, those channels have like tens of millions of subscribers, which is amazing to me.
I love those.
I'll sit there and watch them though. Next thing you know, 2 hours have gone by and you've watched.
I mean, I watched a guy work a backhoe for like an hour.
Are you a foot guy?
No.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, feetfinder.com.
Brett does.
Yeah. Brett has an account.
So now it's also a trendy thing now. You see a lot of like decor, like the cowhide.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys do stuff with that, or you guys are just like?
I hate that stuff. And the reason why is those aren't hides probably from here. They're probably shipped over from.
Well, probably. But
and they're all processed over there and stuff. So like, I love them because I would love to do that. Like we've talked about that.
I don't know if that's even an option for you guys, or.
There's guys doing it. It's so funny because we keep talking about that. Because there's a couple cows that I like their brands, like, and so that's funny. Like I'm talking about like how much we care for them and stuff too.
And then you're a Leatherface over here.
Want their skin.
I'm gonna wear your skin.
They wear your skin. But there's people who do it. It's just harder to do in the States is what I'm trying to say. So that's like my air quote problem with the hides and stuff. There's probably companies doing it in the United States and such, but a lot of that stuff's done overseas and shipped back over. And if you've noticed, a lot of those hides aren't solid color. That's cattle we have those cattle here, don't get me wrong, but that's kind of more common overseas. Some of those hides, they're like Brahma, and they're warmer breed cattle like they are down south and such. But from everything I've heard and people I've talked to just that have looked into it like I have, a lot of those tanneries are overseas and they aren't our cattle, and as an American cattle and stuff. So
And speaking on the overseas, I heard some like crazy statistics that, and probably not obviously smaller ranchers, but like the majority of how much beef is raised here is sent to China. There's like some crazy number on that, I believe.
Okay, I know what you're talking about, and I didn't dig into that because I think I saw something along those lines. So from an export and import standpoint, I'm not well versed in the statistics of it, but what I'll say is we export. China and these other countries whose like economy is doing good, they want like our premium beef as like the premium cuts. They're starting to appreciate those more. So we do export, but we import too. And I don't know like what the trade-off is with that is what I'm trying to say.
And how is that affecting like you guys, like small ranch? And I don't think it's small, but you know what I mean? You're not a giant processing.
No, I think exports and imports though are good because I'm never going to bag on that. But I always tell people, like, if you want to make sure your money's going somewhere, if you're buying from the grocery store, just try to find American made sticker on it, like a U.S. label. You know, so many grocery stores like us, Hy-Vee now, right? Like you can buy eggs from Columbus, Nebraska. Like I think there's grocery stores who are really trying to do local. I tell people if you can spend the extra buck and you want to buy your beef in the grocery store, just try to see if they have a local rancher listed or American raised sticker or something on your beef, because I think it just makes more of an impact locally. You know what I mean? Like just try to keep it in the U.S. But I don't know export and import what the current trade-off percentage.
But you don't see it like affecting your business, like?
No, because you kind of got to do it because, and when I say you have to do it, it is bringing more money to ranchers inadvertently from like an economic standpoint, because people are paying more overseas. So by rights, if it would all transpire like it's supposed to, if they're paying more for cuts, it should increase the cost, which should then increase the cost when your calves are sold at the sale barn. Like the long way around that, it should trickle down
to you guys.
Should.
Now, are you guys going to jump on the Wagyu train?
No.
Wow, that was a very quick answer.
My dad and I've talked about that a lot.
Why so quick?
Because our beef's good enough. I've had people that breed with Wagyu and they're like, what Wagyu are you breeding? And I said, none, because it grades so well. The problem with Wagyu is it gets it too fatty. Then you have a hard time selling ground beef. And in an 800-pound carcass, you will have 300 to 400 pounds of ground beef. So, you know, like people want the really fatty steak, but they don't want the really fatty ground beef.
That actually kind of makes sense.
See what
That's
I'm
probably why Wagyu cuts are more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much waste.
Yep.
And our beef is, and I'm obviously very biased, but like our beef's good. I don't want to add that in there because it does grade so well. Like I personally think it would, for my palate and my preference, I think it'd get too fatty. Then I'm thinking about your roasts and your ground beef and all your other cuts. You only get 30 ribeyes per steer. That's it, 30. And then you have all that other beef to move. So, you know, I think sometimes people forget all the other cuts that have to be involved in that. And that was my big debate with when my dad and I were talking about it. I said, you can do it and try it. But I said, I don't want to try to market it. Just
Isn't raising the Wagyu, it's kind of different. They're like almost like in a dark barn and like not moving around. Like
There's different extremes because there's a local feedlot, family-owned feedlot, or not a family-owned, but a small, I guess it is, family-owned feedlot by us. They have Wagyu. They're treated just like the others. I think it's different. There's like those classifications of what they're doing, like all the acronyms in front of it. I think that's where that may come into play, or maybe originally. But in the United States, I know of some people who they're raising them like on a ranch like ours and sending them like the traditional route. So they're not treated any differently, except for maybe fed a little longer and maybe a different ration, but treated the same. But I think that's a classification thing, possibly.
Okay.
Not 100%.
Because I do my briskets a lot of times from Snake River
Yeah.
when it's all Wagyu, but
That's what Porky Butts uses.
yeah, Blaine and we had Blaine on here.
Oh, you did? He's the best.
He's a good dude. Because it is hard, and this is not a knock against anyone else, but I think Wagyu is the best brisket, and that's why they use them in competition because of
marbling. And it's something. It's not just. I think it's something not even in regards. So when you look at marbling, I think the marbling is finer. Like the fat deposit is in the muscle more than like Angus or Red Angus or something. So you know how you can see it? I think with the Wagyu, it's like sprinkled in more. You know what I'm trying to say? Like within the fibers versus
the intermuscular is a lot more there. And that's the hard part because we've talked about it before. Brisket was, it was always like a really shitty cut of meat. Like during the Depression, that's like what they would just feed people. Like, so to be able to take it and like polish a turd,
yep,
you need to start with like not that gross of a turd.
But a little better.
And it's hard because I've done like Matt and I talked about it, somebody like butchered a cow up by him and gave me like just a flat, and it was rough. And it's very specific, and that's where I think that part is hard. But yeah, all the other cuts I think are, like I said, because the Wagyu beef is fatty.
And so I pay attention to people selling direct to consumer. If you look at people who are selling Wagyu, their steaks and stuff are decent priced, and then their ground beef's cheap. And all that tells me is they can't move it. Because I'm a big picture person. Obviously, I got to move 500 pounds or of beef at once. So if you're getting a little bit of a premium, but then you're taking a hit on the ground beef, that doesn't make any sense. See what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I like it.
But now, how are your guys' briskets?
Delicious.
What's your average weight for a full packer?
Now I don't know because they trim it pretty good. Like I'll get like some 9-pound briskets.
And that's point and flat, or the.
So, but they're trimming it too, so they're not leaving that fat cap on for you, because that's what you mean by packer, right? Like with the fat cap.
Yeah, just fold everything. Yeah,
I don't know if I've ever even gotten one completely that way. So 9-pound trimmed is what I'm trying to say, like ready to go.
Then you guys smoked it, or you guys?
Yep, they're delicious.
I'm gonna have to get one.
But that's the thing too, that I think I'll have people like in regards to, you said somebody got an animal harvested and it wasn't very good. There's people selling beef.
And at least the brisket wasn't good. I think the rest of it might have been good.
Pretty good. But I'm kind of the person too that people are like, oh, I want to try your beef. And I say, try the ground beef. And they say, why wouldn't you have me try a steak? I said, because if the ground beef's good, you're going to like everything else. Like I would rather have you just buy 1 pound of ground, because that's going to tell you if the rest of the animal's good. That's I don't want to say your bottom, but it is your bottom, right? That's like your basic. So if that's good, you'll like everything else. But I will say, I'll have people that'll come and be like, well, I got it from, Farmer Bob. Last year was terrible. The year before was good. And I said, where's he getting his cattle from? How's he feeding them? There's guys that'll go to a sale barn and buy calves and feed them. And there's nothing wrong with this, but I'm talking about from a consistency standpoint. They're not even getting the same genetics every year. So you have to have that base and then feed. Like all cattle aren't created equally. And then so you have to have good genetics and feed them well and feed them and know what you're doing, because you can't just say, oh, it's Angus, so it's going to be good. That's not how it works. So, there's a lot of, I think people are realizing beef is like wine. Like it's not all the same, or whiskey. Just because it has that first basic ingredient, it doesn't mean it's going to be good. And I think more people are finding that out now.
That's a good point, because there's a lot of shitty whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
It's
There is.
Now, if someone was buying there first,
Mm-hmm.
how would you lay that out for them? If someone called you and it was like, hey, Michaela, I'm buying my first, I'm going to buy a whole from you.
Okay.
What should I do? I know you said kind of get everything,
You have
But-
a list of butchers that you
I
recommend?
only use 2.
Okay.
So I have it all scheduled and such. Well, first I always tell people, because they're like, oh, it's a lot of money, because it is an investment. It's thousands of dollars if you're buying a whole beef. So I always tell people, buy some just beef online or something from me first.
And what's the freezer life? So that gives some people out there an idea, or dozens of listeners. Like what's a freezer life on it? So if I buy a whole from you, I pick it up next month.
Yep.
Is it a year?
I've eaten beef like 2 to 3 years old, but I have a chest freezer, and
Sure,
my
as long as you have
freezers
a
are
deep
good.
freeze, yeah.
You know, hypothetically, it's like if you follow the guidelines, it's like a year.
Those are dumb.
Exactly. So if you have like a chest freezer, but it has to be one that like is laying down. If you have an upright, there is a difference in that, and it's regarding airflow. And I'm not a
Freezer specialist.
refrigerator guy. Yeah, but there is something with like the airflow, and there is something to that. So that's, you know, my 2 cents. The chest freezers that you have to like bend in to get, there's a better
That everybody's
freezer than
grandma
that.
has?
Yes.
Yeah.
That your
Yep.
grandma had. So and I'm not being dramatic. I've eaten stuff that I'm like, I don't know how old this is. Like I've eaten stuff couple years old. As long as the seal's not popped, like it's fine. You always run a chance of freezer burn, but once again, that goes with your freezer. So I always tell people, because it is an investment, like, and I get it. If you want to try something, like I always suggest, you know, buying something online or doing like a little box and just sample it to see, because I get it. It's an investment. We have like a beef share season. So I have one primary butcher I use year round. They're in that, as well as another one during share season, because of the volume of beef shares that we sell. Beef share season's like July through September. I tell people like I have to have a deposit because it's not a t-shirt. If you back out, I can't put it back on the shelf. Like it's a process, right? So then, you know, a deposit will run through, like on my website, I have like a YouTube video I've recorded. I have it broken down to a T. I typed up a cut sheet for you, and then I, you know, listed those cuts that we all enjoy that many are afraid of, like the tri-tip, the culotte, the skirt, the flank, the, you know, brisket, short ribs. Like I break down everything and ask people to get on there and read it, because when that butcher calls you and I schedule the appointment and I say, hey, Brett, your animal's going in July 14th, I will get the carcass weight for you a couple days after it's harvested. I call the butcher and get all the weights, and then I contact you and tell you what you owe me, and then you and the butcher talk. Like, I'm out. Because it's your animal. Like, you're literally buying an animal. It's yours. You talk to the butcher. 14 to 21 days it'll dry age, and then you can go pick it up, or I will help arrange that. But that's kind of how it works. It is pretty basic. It's just a little foreign to people, the process of it. So.
And now on the dry age, so you can pick 14 to 21?
I say no.
Okay, you can't pick your dry age time. Okay.
I say 14 to 21 because one butcher's closer to 14, one butcher's closer to 21, but it's also their busy season too. So I like to give people that range, but it's at the butcher's discretion. It's never less than 14, because what's happening is, you know, like, pretend this room's full of carcasses. It's just kind of like they're
circling.
And they're in 14. There's actually debates between 14 to 21 days between butchers. They're like, I don't think it does that much. Now, these are the guys cutting it. They're like, after 14 days, you know, I don't know how much you're gaining, you know. And then I know there's those extreme, like, dry agers where they dry age beef for like 2 months or something. Like, that's a whole different thing. It's kind of a debate between that 14 to 21 days. Like, it's already been done. Like, how much better is it? I don't know. So I know that 14 days, like, that's the best. And 14 to 21, I mean, you're in the window is what I'm saying. You're not
Now,
losing anything.
is all your beef, once you get it, is it all cryopacked or is it paper?
They vacuum seal it, and they both butchers, we use vacuum seal it, and then the ground beef's just in like sleeves. So
So they don't do the wax paper thing anymore?
No, our old butcher used to, and I kind of missed it, but now I kind
And
of
put that red beef tape on there they always used to put on them?
they'd stamp it.
Yeah.
Old school is the best. So I was like kind of annoyed when we got vacuum sealing, but now from like cooking standpoint, say I want to like smoke a chuck roast. Now it's kind of nice because you can just see. You're like, this chuck roast I'm going to cook in the crock pot. I want to smoke this one. So I do like it now from like a chef standpoint for those specialty cuts that you're doing. You can see them instead of like unwrapping and having to mess with it. So I've switched over to the other side.
I remember kind of hearing stories back in the day of like kind of a little butcher swap
Supposedly.
where they steal the better cuts for themselves to sell.
I do believe that still happens.
I believe so too.
I believe that's why I only go to certain butchers.
So it's not just a myth.
I don't
I remember hearing that because I grew up on a farm in a small town. Like, and you would hear stories of that's
Certain things happen.
yeah, that doesn't look right.
Knock on wood. I personally, that I know of, no, I haven't had that experience. We went to some guy. It was actually a cool story. J&J Meat in Elkhorn. Do you guys know that butcher? It's no longer there. Okay. So when they started, my grandpa was one of their first customers, and he's like, we're opening and, we need new customers. And I think this was the story. And grandpa's like, I'll bring you them. And so grandpa, and his name was Jay, had like the best relationship, I believe, because they were like kind of started, he was one of the first customers. But when we would walk in there, he would be smoking a cigar, and there was a buffalo head behind him while he was like cutting the meat. It was like the nostalgic, like cool old butcher. And I remember being little, and I was like, God, that guy's a badass. Like, he was just like your stereotypical butcher. It was awesome. And he did the butcher paper and stuff. So that was a cool butcher shop. But
have you seen is it Casanova's? The new one that's over in Rockbrook? He's supposed to be kind of an old school kind of butcher shop.
That's not the Piedmontese one, is it?
No, that's further out on Maple. There's a new one. It's called, I haven't been there yet, but I heard it's kind of like an old school butcher shop.
That'd be cool. Yeah, the one butcher that I primarily go to, it's in West Point. It's called ASC. They're great. You walk in there, you can see them cutting in the back. They've got a glass window you can see. They're as close to old school with the feel that you can kind of see what's going on that I've personally been to in quite a while. So they do a phenomenal job, and you can kind of see what's going on. So I like that.
Nice. So when do you guys normally do your quarters halves? When does that come available for people? Like
right now. So what I always tell people is, if they're interested, like, contact us. The earlier the better. You can contact me year round, but like, I had some people contacting me in December. I'm like, I don't have any. I mean, I can put you on a list. I'll have you like as early as possible if we can get you one. But that's why I try to get people on that beef share season, because with how our ranch operates, and I told you guys, like, that life cycle kind of, that's when the most are ready. So I try to get people on that schedule, so it just makes sense for everybody, so I can get them one and stuff. So.
And then you kind of take your list, and if you're at the bottom of the list, you may or may not get something, or do you know?
No, you will. If you sign up, I can guarantee you get one. But if you contact me like in September, I don't know if I'll have one available. I tell people to contact me year round, but I really try to get people to contact me by kind of April, May, so I can make sure I can get them one, make sure I can get.
So you know how much product you have versus, like, how many reservations can you take a year? That's kind of when I was asking earlier, like, how do you know how much you need to have?
Oh, it's a guessing game. I hate it, kind of, because my dad and my husband, they've kind of coordinate calves, like where they're going and when they're. So my husband and I have pens at our house is where we'll finish them out. And then my dad's place is called like the home place. So calving and stuff happens at his house in his area. So anyway, we were talking about this year's calves and how many we were going to bring over to my husband, nice place. And my dad's like, how many do you need? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's hard because you want to make sure I know I have enough for this year, but as those spots start filling up, then that's when I'll have to, turn people away sometimes. So, because then I also am doing it for my online sales and holidays and stuff. It's a guessing game. It's very stressful. It's hard to do.
And you guys do everything. You guys do jerky or meat sticks?
Yep. And beef sticks and such. Yeah.
So what's your best selling product?
Honestly,
outside of quarters have, just like if somebody's on your site, like what's your best seller?
It's probably a steak. I haven't looked for a while. It's probably a ribeye or something. But ironically, what's funny is sometimes I'll run out of ground beef because so many people will buy 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds of ground beef. And it's a lot of families because they just want to stock up on good quality ground beef. And once again, there's nothing wrong with the grocery store, but I feel like people don't like that variability in quality when they're buying. I mean, it's expensive. It's expensive protein, and then sometimes it's good and sometimes it stinks, and it's just the quality at the grocery store, not necessarily it being bad, but that taste and such. So sometimes I'll run out of ground beef because people just like to have it and stock up, so, which is surprising. But yeah, ribeyes probably, and probably I'll run out of ground beef a couple times a year, so, which surprises me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. What's the best way for people to find you, get a hold of you?
Social media, or I have a website. It's dndbeef.com. They can find me on there too.
Or just D and the ampersand?
D, it's all spelled out. D and D.
Okay.
Yep.
And you guys deliver to Omaha,
Yep.
right? Twice a week? Twice a week?
It's about once a week. I actually delivered this morning before I came here. I try to do about once a week, or it's at least twice a month is our minimum. So.
And where do you guys meet at for that? I know do you still have here listed as a location?
Yep. I have here as a drop-off location, and then the Elkhorn area. And if they go on our website, I have drop-off locations. I have a page typed up with all the drop-off locations on there. I try to hit a couple spots just to hit everybody, like here in Elkhorn and Bennington and Blair and Fremont, and I kind of have a couple different drop-off spots. So.
Okay. Do you guys have anything else?
I don't think so.
I feel like we learned a wealth of things about cattle and sturdy women.
Got to get those hips.
Gotta get those
It's a lot of data entry is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's what I learned.
Yeah, it's a lot more data and science to it.
And there's a lot of ranches that aren't registered though too. I mean, there are, but everybody's still kind of paying attention to those same basic things. I mean, it's a lot more than I think a lot of people realize the data that goes into it.
Well, I'm sure you have some of the old school people who are like old school football coaches who are just like, hey, this is what I feel. And then you have all the analytics guys. So there's probably a mixture.
They'll match up. So like those guys, like we have a couple guys that'll buy bulls from us, and they just call my dad, and they're like, and they know what they want, but they just kind of expect, if you're a seed stock operation like we are, you'll have some guys that just call you and they say, we have these genetics, our cows are about this size, and we're looking to do this. And then they want us to pick out a handful of bulls for them to choose for, because they just don't want to sift through, like you just said, all that data. So that's kind of, it's no different than somebody probably coming in and working out with you guys, and they're like, I want to get stronger, just tell me what to do. Like, or whatever their goal is, they're coming to you for your expertise, right? So there's still a lot of people, and I'm not bagging on them, they just don't want to have to, it's a lot. I mean, you guys go down that rabbit hole. It's a lot. It's like those hoof videos.
Who knew you were on cattlefeetfinder.com?
I know. It's always the ones that, have the most problems, that are the most entertaining to watch.
Do you watch as like an emotional connection? Like you feel sorry for them?
Yeah. I mean, they walk in there, they can't really walk when they come in there. The guy fixes them up, and then
they prance out.
No, that doesn't happen usually. Then there's follow-up videos. You're like, oh, I remember that cow when it was in there before. You're like, man, it's doing so much better now. And then he's up there rubbing the cow's head and stuff. See, some of these cows are nice, and some of them are not nice. So, yeah.
That happens sometimes.
Have you seen the Instagram page where that guy is eating breakfast and his cow is behind him and he keeps stealing his food?
I showed it to my husband. I'm like, he's pancakes.
But he doesn't ever go after the milk.
I know.
He never goes after the milk.
But I showed that to my husband. He was like, oh my God. But yeah, that's the other
That's
thing.
a pet cow.
That is, and that's a Holstein too, so that they're a little more friendly from birth. But no, cattle are, and that's one thing, like our cattle were known for really docile cattle. So when my dad was at the fire station, it was me, my mom, and my sister. My dad wanted a son. Sorry, he didn't get one. So he just got us. So like our cattle, he didn't put up with anything because he just had 3 women out there. Cattle during calving season are extremely dangerous and aggressive because
I don't think people realize how big they really are until you get next to a couple. And then they're with their calf. Yeah.
Hormones, like bitches be crazy. Like, oh, I mean, the nicest cow will, like, if you look at her wrong, she's gonna be like, you need to get out of here. And so, our cattle are really chill. And so when I saw that video, I was like, oh, I wonder if I can get one of ours to eat pancakes. But
I think you just found a shirt idea for your website.
What, bitches be crazy?
Yeah, just a picture of a cow.
And it's crazy how powerful they can be when they want to be. I mean, I remember like my dad would maybe have like 15, 20 head of cattle he would raise for butcher, but like we would go out and load them, and he had like a chute built, and the rest would just be kind of like gates we would kind of get them into.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to be in there, like my dad said, if they come, just get the fuck out of the way because they're going wherever they want to go. And they can clear like a 4-foot fence.
Yeah.
They're pretty. Is it bison? I think have a higher vertical. Bison have a wicked vertical.
So a friend of mine sells bison, and she can only go to certain processors because I don't know if it's, and I'm not being dramatic, but I don't know the number. I think those gates might have to be like 10 feet high. Like it's some weird.
I remember there was a bison farm in my hometown, and they had like double stacked gates basically because the bison could clear.
They're just like boing.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive for an animal that large.
And it's funny too, because like I said, our cattle are chill, but whenever you want to get them to move or like hormones or breeding, like just hormones, if they decide to do something, yeah, like you're just like, okay, I'll just stand over here. But they'll like jump a gate every now and then or something, and I can't believe they do that still. And it's like I said, ours are really calm. It's really rare, but every now and then I'm still impressed that they can just destroy something in 5 seconds. So
I just have to drive around like Southwest Iowa for work, And it was always funny, like the day in the life of a cow. I remember driving by some cattle, and this one was just laying there. And I came back like 2 hours later, same spot, just fucking hanging out. It hasn't moved. I was like, fuck, he's got it going on. Like, well, at least for another like 18 months or so.
And then tell us no more.
Till they go to town.
Yeah, till they take that ride.
They are pretty chill and stuff, but yeah.
They're interesting animals.
Yeah, and they're smarter than you think too. Like, so those cows that I told you, like we'll have cows that when, say we need to get them in and I don't know, something with health and they're old, like the cows, when you get them into the alleyway, they'll just turn and look at me and they're like, no. Last time I was in there, you gave me a shot. Like they're not stupid. Like, no, they're smart. And my wife would always laugh because we would go, my parents still had some in the old, like when you're trying to get them to come and follow you, Yeah.
you know, you have the old cadence you call.
Yep.
She's like, why do they come to that? I was like, I have no idea.
Yeah, they're trained.
But it's always been that old like come boss thing. That's always been to call cat, and I don't know where it came from.
We say here, boss, and then they'll come. And then you can only to certain people. And like, because if you guys walk out there, they're going to get high-headed. They're going to look aggressive because they're going to be like, who are these three guys? That's not Dan or Jared or Michaela or my mom. Like, they know, like.
Yeah, but if you're a regular, they're just like, what's up? And they'll follow you wherever you go.
If it's me, they're like, oh, I wonder if she brought us a snack today. Like that's, I mean, and we'll go out to the pasture because they don't run from us. And then if I have like a feed sack or something and I need to move them to a different pasture, even though there's not really a treat in it, I just call and like hit the bag once and they're like, oh, it's time to go. Like, yes. And then they know and they go. It's crazy. But if you guys would try to do that, they'd be like,
I used to help my dad feed him. And like, yeah, as soon as they saw me walk outside, they were just like, yo. And they just like, they'll follow you in and just go stand there.
They're pretty fun though. But they don't like little kids either. Like my kids. And
I don't
stuff.
really either, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I don't blame them. I don't even know. But it's just funny. Like even though they're around my kids, like during calving season, like they want to clean their clock because they're like, that person is too small. They should not be here. Or our dog.
You think it's like a dominance thing? Like they know they're like structurally bigger, like looking down on them where they kind of look up at you?
I don't know because like even during calving season and stuff, like they don't care for the dogs obviously because we use our dog to move them and stuff. But during calving season, like they try to kill the dog. Like 5 seconds. Like Jack walks in there and they are like run at him, like because they're trying to kill him. So I don't know if it's with the kids too. They're not a big fan of them, and then it's just because they're heightened awareness during calving. Like they want to eat them. But
I think when you're big, like things that are little freak you out.
Freak you out. Yep. And especially
keep up with them.
And their awareness is heightened right now because there's also cows too during calving season that don't like me and like my dad, which I don't understand. Because I'm usually the nice
Is it like a pheromone kind of thing then? It's got to be something. I wonder the heightened smells and whatever.
I don't know, but they don't like me too. I mean, not that they're trying to kill me, but they just won't like relax their gaze, like just stare at me intently, and I just like slowly walk around them because I'm just waiting for him to like try to kick me or something. I don't know. Hormones.
Girls don't like other girls.
Nope. Maybe that's what it is.
That's weird.
What kind of dog do you use? Or is it just whatever dog you got?
No.
Actually,
He's a 3/4 Australian Shepherd, a quarter Blue Heeler.
have they ever gotten to him to where you were like, ooh?
They've rolled him a couple times, but honestly, I was kind of hoping they would because he wouldn't like. I mean, he's doing it himself. He's like walking in there all nonchalant. I'm like, you're asking for it, sir. Like,
They just like ran after him. They kind of nose roll him. They just kind of hit him with-
like if they would have got him against something, they probably would have like hit him. I mean, they were like I said, they're not gonna like kill him, but they'd have probably hit him against the wall. I mean, that's like 1,500 pounds of pure rage coming at a little dog. No, but he was in there like trying to eat calf shit or something. Like he wasn't paying. He should not have been in there and messing. But usually it's like a warning run. You know, like they're just trying to scare him a little bit.
So basically, he was going to learn the hard way.
Yeah, but he still does it. So I'm like, whatever, because he's probably 6 now or 7. I'm like, you're just asking for it. So, no, where he helps us work and move them and stuff. He does a pretty good job. So, and then I've got a Pyrenees too that keeps coyotes away. So that's been good too. So.
Oh, big old, yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's funny. You said the calf shit thing when I used to feed cattle for my dad. And he just had the bunk. It wasn't like very long, and he'd feed it. It'd be like 4 to like 6 buckets.
Yeah.
He's like, we see a tail come up and they fart, they shit. So look out. He's like, if they fart, they're going to shit. So don't be behind them. So like my entire time, I'm like probably 12. Like my fear is like, I'm going to see a tail come up and just get shit on. That was my biggest fear. It wasn't even about, he never said anything about the cow kicking me. He's just like,
No, he just was like trying to give you a heads up.
yeah, he's like, if the tail comes up, get out of the way.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's good.
That's great.
That was my only fear then.
Yeah. No, they usually aren't too. Like I said, they're usually if they know the person, it's not bad. I think when people get hurt is you're not paying attention, or honestly, it's just something spooked them or something along those lines, because they're usually pretty chill.
And if you want the softest, smoothest sanded wood ever, the wood on a cattle bunk is like the smoothest, softest wood you'll ever touch.
Or like if they have like their rubbing tree out on pasture, if you find it, yeah, they'll get that thing like sanded down to a T.
Oh, it's like super nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, we appreciate you coming out, making the trip down.
Yeah.
Hanging
thank you.
out.
I
If
appreciate
anybody
it.
wants to get a hold of her, go to D&D Beef. You can buy online. You can, I think they message you through Instagram.
Yep. You can find me a couple places. So
And she posts some videos, just kind of ranch life, what it's like.
yeah, get some hate.
The good, the
All
bad, the
good.
ugly,
Yep.
you know. So, but yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Like, subscribe, follow. Even if you don't like us, still follow. We're on all major platforms and YouTube. See you guys.